Hey folks, welcome to Guitar Daily. It's Nick Granville coming to you from Wellington, New Zealand. So I was thinking about it. What would I really want from a modeler? What would be the ideal world? I've kind of been through a bunch of these things. I own a Fender FR10, this guy here. Fantastic. I own this Laney IRTX, which is okay. I have this Red Sound RK8, which is under here. I've tried a heap of different ones. I've tried a couple of different of the Red Sound ones in Brisbane when I was at Independent Music, and they sound really good too. The 10-inch version. I've tried a few of these over the years. I've tried a couple of the Line 6 things, and they all seem to be lacking the same thing. I thought, let's discuss that today, and let's kind of, if you've got any ideas that you think these things should include, leave it in the comments below. For me, the one thing that's missing from all of these things is, why aren't they in stereo? Right? These modelers are kind of set up for stereo, and they do sound different in stereo. Some elements of it sound better. The reverb in particular. When you have stereo reverb, it's much nicer. Stereo delays. So it's like, what I'd ideally want is some mix of all these different units all in one, and I thought I'd go over that today. So the Fender FR10 is probably the closest I've found to kind of it being right. But there's some key things that are missing. It's not stereo. So I would love to see this with a 2x10 version. That'd be fantastic. And if you could have one input that you could run one cable, a stereo cable to, would be super handy. Maybe a stereo jack at this end to 2 XLRs into your effects unit. I like the EQ on the top. I think that's fantastic. I think that should stay. What I would like is be really handy to have an auxiliary input as well, which is what I have on this little Laney. It has a auxiliary input on the back. I can probably show you that. Here. There, auxiliary in. So you can plug your phone in. Or better yet, Bluetooth, right? What about Bluetooth on these things? You know what I mean? Essentially, this is just a monitor. But having an auxiliary in is super handy because you can plug your phone into it or Bluetooth into it or something. So if you had a rehearsal, you can play back tracks to people. Because really, these are just my monitor. Do you know what I mean? If I was doing a workshop or a clinic, then I could just do that as well. So an auxiliary in. So stereo would be one thing I'd like. An auxiliary in would be another thing I'd like. I'd love it if they could make it lighter. That's the thing. So maybe it could, neodymium speakers, is that what they're called? Could make these things lighter. Especially if it's going to be 212, it might start to get heavier. Open back might actually make it lighter too, less wood. So lighter, stereo, auxiliary in would be great. I think the power rating's about right, about 1,000 watts for this. This one here is 400. It's a little bit underpowered. I think the RK8 is a 400 as well. But yeah, so stereo, I think 10-inch speakers are the way to go. And the big thing that's missing for me with all of these things, they call these flat response, right? They say these things are, they're supposed to be, is it flat response full frequency or full frequency flat response, whichever way around it goes. None of them, they don't sound the same. This one sounds nothing like this one, sounds nothing like this one. I'd describe this one as sounding hi-fi. I'd describe this one as sounding like a little bit thin, and the Laney's like a little bit, how to explain it, kind of a little more mid-rangey honk. I'd say this one sounds the closest to a guitar cabinet. But none of them sound flat, right? Wouldn't it be great if they could do these things and actually make them flat? And then, like a set of studio monitors. If you're using studio monitors, you know that if they're flat, actually flat-ish, then you can trust what you're hearing out of them. Because when I use this live, I don't trust the sound coming out of it at all. It's really just my monitor. I trust what's going to the front of house is exactly what I want the audience to hear. And for me, I know as long as I can hear myself via this and I know it's sounding half decent, I'm okay. But wouldn't it be awesome if this sounded like flat, like a studio speaker, and then I could actually dial things in on my Fractal and know that was exactly what I was going to be translating to the front of house? That'd be amazing. So maybe even like a headphone output too, so that you could plug some really good headphones into this, and then you could kind of dial it in that way as well. And that would be different from running a headphone from your Fractal or your Helix or whatever one you use, because that's like, it's not going via the amplifier part of this, if you follow what I'm saying. So yeah, my wish list would be stereo 2x10. I don't think you need bigger than 10s, to be honest. For most gigs I've ever done, I've used the 12 a lot, but the 10 is the one I bought. But 2x10 stereo, auxiliary input to be able to run other stuff, or Bluetooth. Lighter, would be really nice, and maybe headphone output or something like that, and definitely as flat as they can get it in terms of response. Be fantastic. No hype from this stuff at all. This one has legs on the side. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know that I've ever used them. I don't particularly like the sound of an amp pointing at my head. I've never liked that, even with guitar amps. I remember, when I was using my Bassman one time, I leaned it up against the wall and pointed at me, and I was like, oh, it's just like, it's not the way it's meant to be happening. They sound better when they're on the ground and they're resonating. Like it's the floor becomes part of the amp and all that sort of stuff, right? But also too, I wanted a few feet back from me so I can hear it and all that kind of stuff, and the way it's supposed to sound. So I don't know that I'd ever use the tilt back feet. So maybe they could be removed. Don't know. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? What do you think they should do with these FRFRs? What's the next step for them? That's really the key thing I'm getting at today, is what's the next step for this stuff? Because there's got to be an evolution, right? But more and more people are going this way. I'm seeing a lot of companies are bringing out plugins now, like even like big companies like Two Rock have brought out that Bloomfield plugin, because they know that people are going more and more digital and more virtual, which is a good thing in my opinion. Guitar amps aren't going anywhere. I'm a big advocate for guitar amps. I think good guitar amps are an amazing experience, and if I'm doing anything super critical, I probably would use an amp, like say an acoustic jazz record. Then it just doesn't make sense to run through the modeler in that instance, especially if you're in a really beautiful space, you got nice microphones, a good engineer, then why not go with a really good guitar amp too? But for 99% of gigs, this is my setup. So yeah, anyway, I just thought I'd share some thoughts and feelings on that, and let me know what you think. I'd be curious to know. I'll play out with some more stuff. So you probably noticed that was a little bit David Gilmour inspired. I was listening to his interview this morning with Rick Beato, and it was so fantastic.